My name is Caroline Stokes. I am the CEO of Forward and the creator of Workplace EQ Transformation Certification, which is a bootcamp for CEOs in the C-suite. I am thrilled to bring today someone who's very special, who I wanted to have speak at the TED Talk that I had to cancel because COVID. And he agreed after a very, very frantic summer working on all of these amazing projects to be available at this particular time. So I'm thrilled to bring Rick Champagne, global media and entertainment industry management leader at NVIDIA. So a little bit about him. He originally came from the 2D creative software industry and then moved into 3D software. Today, he is now serving creative professionals in the hardware space. What's interesting as well is that he holds a patent on shape recognition. And you might think to yourself, what does that mean? But we're going to find out. And Rick is also on the boards of the Advanced Imaging Society and the Academy Software Foundation Outreach Committee and AIXR. That's a mouthful, and I apologize if it sounded a bit too jittery. It is so good to have you here.
Great to be here. Thank you, Caroline. It's been far too long, really.
Oh, I know. When back in the olden days, we'd just meet up at SIGGRAPH and stuff like that. Not this time. So I'm really keen to know what you're really stoked about right now.
Well, I'm really stoked about AI and the future of connected experiences. So, we talked about this before. AI really is the most powerful technological force of our time. It's really the technology of automation, and automation drives productivity and growth for industries. It lowers costs for consumers. It improves the quality of life. It adds convenience. And so now software is writing software that no humans can. And AI can perceive its environment, it can infer the best plan, it can learn from and act intelligently, and it can learn from every interaction and improve itself. And so the software that's written by AI is vastly different than that written by a human. It's far more parallel and thousands to millions of times more compute intensive. And so it really requires the reinvention of computing. And that's what NVIDIA is doing. We're rethinking the entire stack. From the hardware infrastructure to develop and deploy on, to the software tools, the algorithms, and that's part of our big mission right now.
Holy cow!
Yeah!
Wow! Holy cow! So I'm going to ask you a little bit, because that to some people are just going to go, I can't see it, I can't work out how that would be, because you're in the creative space, you've gone to 3D, you've gone from 2D to 3D, and now you're working with creative professionals. How might that now look?
Well, it's just reinventing the entire data center, really, and it's preparing organizations to be software defined so that they can grow and change with this new technology. I mean, there are trillions of IoT devices collecting data, for example, so watches, phones, sensors, and cameras, and every millisecond of the day, the data being collected can be used and acted upon. So architects, engineers, they can make informed decisions to create more efficiencies in the built environment. Healthcare professionals, scientists, they can determine the best course of action for their patients and or help solve some of the world's greatest challenges. And so they really have to be prepared for that with their technology to be able to grow and expand like that.
Wow. So as you know, we've all got many of us have a fatalistic mind of where AI might take us. We've all seen Terminator. We know that Hollywood's done a really good job of demonstrating various different lenses of the future when it comes to AI, and some of it just does not look good. So how do you see, and I'm mindful that you can only say so much because of NVIDIA, how can you see it actually enhancing the world?
I mean, immeasurable ways. AI is persistent today. It's not something that is on the horizon. It's active and available, and people are using it in softwares. You're using personal assistants. They're talking to their devices at home, asking them questions and to tell them jokes, and they're getting recommender systems for shows to watch and shopping and different things like that. So it's really helping us in those ways. But also, there are these, we have these persistent worlds like Minecraft and Fortnite, and we're just seeing the beginnings of the metaverse. And though they seem like games today, really the inhabitants of these metaverses are building cities, and they're gathering for concerts and events, and they're connecting with other players. And so these metaverses aren't only useful for games. We announced this week the public beta of something called Omniverse, which is NVIDIA's platform for simulation and collaboration. And it's where these future worlds can be photorealistic, they can obey the laws of physics, and they can be populated by human avatars or AI software agents. And right now, what's really interesting is that these metaverses right now today in the public beta are connected to software applications like Autodesk Maya, 3ds Max, Unreal Engine, and they can collaborate on 3D data sets and build worlds. However, almost like the Google Docs of 3D. But we're also creating the future in these metaverses before actually downloading the blueprints into the physical world. So, for example, you can train an autonomous vehicle on millions of hours of driving on roads in the metaverse before transferring that learning to an actual car. You can train a robot to work in hazardous conditions in the metaverse and then transfer that to a physical robot when it's ready. And so that's, these are just some of the ways where AI and these metaverses come together and can create these connected experiences and can help humans.
How incredible. I so appreciate the way that you just explained everything there, because I'm not in your shoes. I don't work on AI. I don't have the background or the pedigree that you have. So it's like trying to put what you've just described into words is very difficult for me. So you've been very helpful. Thank you very much. So how do individuals as, let's say, consumers and individuals as people in the workplace and organizations, how do you think that they need to transition?
Well, so just like NVIDIA's reinventing the technology stack, I think AI strategies are really important for businesses today. They really need to think about what AI means for the growth of their business and for automating certain things. But with that, you also have to think about your human strategies. And really the presence of AI is just forcing us to rethink what it means to be human. It's forcing us to rethink about what it means to be creative. And so in developing a workforce, we can only truly express what it means to be human, first of all, by being inclusive, by being diverse. We need to reinvent how we bring humans and technology together to benefit the future generations of humanity. And honestly, we can only do that through a human-centered approach. And a little plug here, that's why I'm also excited about this, because this is a human-centered approach to HR strategies. And in the world, in the age of AI, it's more important than ever. And looks like my camera may have picked up on that, so I apologize.
And now it's
enlightened. Your book has enlightened us. Look what happened.
What a technology problem.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for raising my book. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Well, exactly. There's becoming more human and removing a lot of the challenges. I'm so sorry that your background has failed, but
I'm sorry too.
It's going to be fantastic. Who knew that my book would just completely wreck your picture?
It didn't wreck it. It enlightened it. Look what happened.
I'm so sorry. So I think I'm really grateful to you that you acknowledge that organizations and the people within them need to be more human. They need to adapt. They need to really connect a lot in ways that they haven't done previously. And as we know, organizations typically don't run like that. And it takes a lot to change that. So thank you for acknowledging that. It's a very, very important aspect. So I'm really curious. And again, I know that you're at NVIDIA and you work at NVIDIA, and I can only imagine that you may not be able to talk about this, but I'm going to ask gently, which is, how do you notice in your organization that human approach, because if you're pioneering the technology, I'm imagining you're also pioneering that human-centered approach.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And NVIDIA works quite a bit differently than other companies I've been in, where there are hierarchies and sort of old models of working. NVIDIA is a much flatter organization, and it's very supportive. And so what happens is whoever has the most knowledge about a certain area will be the leader of that project and will be supported by a group of people. So in fact, you could be working for the CEO on any given project. And you can have the support of vice presidents in the company. It's quite amazing like that. And there's so many intelligent people at NVIDIA that there's this limitless pool of knowledge that you can tap into. So, I think we do have a very different approach, and it's human-centered and very supportive.
That's music to my ears, as I'm sure you're aware. So thank you for that. That is great. So one of the reasons why I created this podcast is because when John Lewis died, it really hurt my heart, and I didn't expect it to. And the statement that he was renowned to talk about was that he was always creating good trouble. So I'm really curious, what good trouble are you creating?
I try to stay out of trouble. But as a creative technologist, as an advocate for AI, maybe I've been guilty of creating a talk where the title is "Can AI be creative?" And so, but it's really, again, it just goes back to trying to help people think about what it means to be human and how we can develop this relationship of collaboration between humans and machines, because AI is the great collaborator, and it can help us with things that we couldn't have done before. And so, maybe add a little provocativeness here and there, but really it's for the good of the intent of driving AI and that relationship.
Yeah. And one of the things I remember seeing on your LinkedIn was just this most beautiful piece of art that AI, I believe, had created. And I remember stating AI is art. And then somebody came in and said, try using it as, try restating that as AI as art. And
Right.
it's a really interesting shift in my perception. And it was just wonderful to see something so beautiful that I hadn't imagined could be possible.
Well, there's a perfect example of collaboration, because I think that the artwork you're referring to is by an artist by the name of Rafiq Anadol, and he collaborates with AI, and but he also has a team of people, and so there are all kinds of creative decisions. So first of all, there's what is the artistic narrative? What is the artistic intent? And so there are other things, like there's a team of people that he works with. There may be someone who's doing data collection. There may be someone who's helping with developing what the installation might look like in an art gallery. But he's ultimately making these creative decisions ahead of time. He's deciding on what the training data for the neural network would be to create this beautiful visual element. And then ultimately, if he gets recommendations from an AI, he's the curator at the end of the process. And so he's deciding what the observer will see. And so it's a very creative process, and it's very much driven by a human.
Very, very interesting. That is great. So I have what it probably feels like an obnoxious question at this point, but this particular evolution, this giant leap that I don't think people really can get their arms around properly. I still feel this is obnoxious, but I'm going to come out with it. Why is it emotionally intelligent that we take this route forward?
The route of AI and so it's throughout our history there's been technology, and creativity has inspired technology and everything. And so I was moderating a panel yesterday with some of the artists that you mentioned. So Rafiq Anadol was one of them, but also Daniel Ambrosia. And so the way that they're thinking about this is that, there's that connection, that relationship. But throughout history, Daniel wrote this mini manifesto about throughout technology, artists have always worked with technology, whether it was a brush or a printing press or whatever it was. And this is a new technology, and it's enabling us to do things we couldn't do before. It forces us to think about humanity and creativity and what our contribution to the world is. and how we can transcend, how we can transcend who we are today. And so I really think AI is a powerful force for bringing humans closer together. We shouldn't be fighting in news groups and forums, and we should be embracing each other and thinking about humanity in the broader context.
So beautifully said. So beautifully said. Rick for president. So, and I really, really appreciate what you're talking about, because, and I hadn't even thought about the context that you just created, which is that people have to use technology to create in a creative way to create the content, to create new ways of doing things. And we just don't know what we don't know. For example, we didn't know what the printing press would create, when probably the first newspapers were being created, and how that would evolve to where we are today. So that's really nice. I think the potential and opportunity is, again, just too big for my imagination to be able to cope with. So I just wish I was a fly on the wall in your environment. Well,
none of us know yet, how great this really is. So.
I'm excited. All right. So I want to ask you, it's my very final question. And I'm very sad that this is my final question, because I think I could keep talking to you for a good hour, which is, what one step can our viewers take to evolve in this new world that you are creating? You are helping to lead.
Well, I think education is very important. People need to understand what AI is. They need to understand how narrow some of these things really are. If something's really good at generating a certain type of image, it's because of what it was trained on. And people need to understand how not to use bias, or how to use bias in building an AI. And just understanding is part of the key to accepting. And it's like that with anything. It's, the more you learn about another culture, the more you embrace it. And it's the same thing with AI. It's another thing. We need to understand it to fully embrace it. And so I would say, learn as much as you can. NVIDIA has some free online resources. We have our Deep Learning Institute, which helps people learn everything from the 101 basics and what it is, how it works, to very tailored and customized learning for institutions. We also have our GPU Technology Conference, which is still on right now. And that's a great place to go and learn from some of the world's leaders on how they're using AI and how it's benefiting humans in their specific industries, everything from healthcare and architecture to media and entertainment. And so, yeah, I think learning is the key.
I completely agree. You've got to have a learn it all mindset right now, because it's just, everything is happening at such a pace, and we need to try and be as aligned as possible with it. So we understand it, and we're able to integrate with it and evolve our organizations and our people at the same time. You have been a fantastic guest, and I'm just so terribly sorry that you're bleached out.
I'm bleached out. It won't come back.
So, please, you're coming back.
Read this book and develop emotionally intelligent organizations.
Well, you so generously plugged my book, and I really appreciate that, but it bleached you out in the process. I'm so sorry. Well, I wish you the very best day. Thank you so much for making this time. I know you've got a very busy schedule, and thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. Take